welcome into Pat's Latest. I'm your host, Mike Gambardella, and we are ramping up to week 2 of the NFL preseason with the Patriots facing off at the Minnesota Vikings. So joint practices are underway against old friend Kevin O'Connell, what Mike Vrabel and he are setting up, including a strict no fighting policy and what that's meant for joint practices thus far. The breakout for Trayvon Henderson continues. The wide receiver room continues to be surprisingly stacked for the Patriots. And are there some actual offensive line concerns for Drake May and company? Before we get into everything, make sure you go down and subscribe for the channel. Also, get in the comments. Let us know what you think about the Patriots going up against a second straight playoff team from the NFC. Is the Trayvon Henderson breakout for real who the wideouts next to Stephon Diggs should be? And is the Patriots' offensive line just too darn young? We look at everything now, starting off with the joint practices against the Minnesota Vikings. And as we mentioned, that no fighting rule put in place, and there was the last one. And Mike Vrabel probably did this because the last time it happened, he came out with a giant cut across his cheek. His own blood splattered on the field. He's not playing anymore. He's the head coach. That shouldn't happen. So, reports back from the first day of those joint practices, no fighting, but both teams seemingly up and down, back and forth, however you kind of want to put it, some ups, downs, highlights, lowlights, if you will. No fights, but the Patriots defense did make life difficult on J.J. McCarthy. The front four definitely getting pressure up front. Clavin Chasen, Harold Landry, Keon White, just to name a few, Milton Williams as well, seemingly in the backfield all day against them. So the Minnesota Vikings offensive line having some issues against the front four of the New England Patriots. And on offense, they too had some protection issues, allowing 6 sacks through those 11 on 11 series that they ran. Also, not a real run game presence with Ramondre Stevenson out, and obviously not wanting to put Trayvon Henderson into those spots quite yet. But we saw Josh McDaniels do a ton of scheming, putting things out there. The playbook was open, if you will. Wheel routes out of the backfield, flea flickers we'll get into, everything, timing routes, a lot of, we'll say, McDaniels poker hands were on the table. The cards were open. But the Patriots, from all accounts, won the day. And again, this is now a team that is facing off at teams that were in the playoffs, that had Super Bowl aspirations last year. And again, the Patriots have a long way to go. And, there have been guys on NBC Boston, there have been guys on Nesson talking about how putting the Patriots in the playoff conversation is too soon, and just talk about building culture, do that year one, and don't even think about the playoffs. And I think that's short-sighted. I really do. And I know this is a 4-win team from back-to-back seasons, but the fact that what we're seeing from Drake May, what we're seeing about the players put around him, yes, the biggest question mark will be the offensive line, which we'll get to finally in the show. But there's enough in this cupboard now that the Patriots truly do have a chance at the playoffs in 2025. And that goes with some not so breaking news that Trayvon Henderson is good. We didn't see him run the ball much in joint practices on Wednesday, but he lit it up everywhere, and mostly as a receiver. That wheel route we mentioned, he took up the left sideline for 70 yards for a touchdown, made a linebacker miss, essentially, mossed him at that point, going up for another reception, beat another corner on another one. He was seemingly everywhere. And Josh McDaniels was commenting on having the ability to use a player such as Trayvon Henderson. He was quoted as saying he's excited to coach him, that we had some really good players with skill sets that are somewhat like his, maybe not one as fast. And that's the takeaway here, is that Trayvon Henderson might be the fastest running back that Josh McDaniels has ever coached. Already lining up saying Shane Vereen is a name we know, saying Vereen was probably the fastest. Him and Danny Woodhead were fast, but Trayvon is fast. And he said he's excited to be with him. Now, we've already said how we could fill that third down back role. Shane Vereen, Danny Woodhead, Rex Burkhead, obviously not fast, but being able to do that Swiss Army knife roll, and then the true one of James White, who was that, pass catcher, but when they needed it most, lined him up and just run the heck out of him. I think Trayvon Henderson has that in spades. I think this is a new wrinkle, and people pointed at that wide receiver room, which we'll get into right after this. But the addition of Trayvon Henderson opens up a whole different bag, not only for Josh McDaniels but for Drake May. And we talked about at the end of the NFL draft how the Patriots chose to not take Luther Burden, who the Chicago Bears took the pick after. Chose not to take him, to say, look, we have a whole wide receiver, let's fill it. Said, no, let's take Trayvon Henderson because we see such a gap in those running back rankings. So if you took Burden, you would have to wait and take a running back that was much further down in the third round at that point. Instead, you switch, take Trayvon and get Kyle Williams. And again, it's Luther Burden and running back X versus what Kyle Williams and Trayvon Henderson give you. And from all accounts now, Trayvon Henderson is now separating himself out from the pack to really be a true difference maker. It'll be interesting to see what happens on Week 2's game against the Minnesota Vikings. He only played 7 snaps, including special teams last week. So again, we'll have an opportunity to showcase his skills. Don't be surprised if it's going to be at a very small amount, because he is already such a big part of this offense. Speaking of those wide receivers, the Patriots suddenly have a stacked wide receiver room, and that's without spending a second-round pick on a wide receiver. And now the question is, could the Patriots forget 6 wide receivers, actually carry 7 going in here? Stephon Diggs was out there on the practice field in joint practices. Obviously did not play in week 1. Don't expect him to play in week 2. And honestly, it would be a surprise at this point if he played in the preseason at all, because he was out there making defenders look straight up silly, making Jeff Okudah run around in circles. Diggs was getting open at will. And for a 31-year-old coming off that ACL injury, that's nothing to scoff at. And I think, again, Diggs is out to prove a point this season. And that's exactly what you want from a player that you invested big money in, and exactly what Drake May needs as a number 1 target. Looking at the rest of that wide receiver room, Pop Douglas obviously settling into that Julian Edelman, Wes Welker slot role. He cooked Byron Murphy at the cornerback spot at one point, consistently making space on Wednesday, but did have a fumble, unfortunately. But again, is locked into that slot role, number 2 role. And Mac Hollins, who looks as a strong, big red zone target and option, also had a 50-yard touchdown. So again, Josh McDaniels finding ways to scheme for his wide receivers and get them into space. And that looks like your top 3, but Kayshon Boutte is showing why he had first-round potential in grades at a certain point in his LSU career, slid down after that tough season. But again, that talent is showing out and showing that the Patriots have a true 4 wide right there. And that's before you even get to third-round pick Kyle Williams, who, if you have a chance, go check yesterday's episode. We went into depth on Kyle Williams, and what to expect from him this season might be different than what a lot of people are telling you. Kyle Williams was open and targeted several times throughout practice against the Vikings, including having some time out there with Drake May, but the connection is a little bit off. They haven't been able to sync up quite yet. That Drake May connection with Kyle Williams is not quite there yet. And that's why he's down at number 5 in these rankings right now. And that is surprising for someone like Kyle Williams, who has shown the ability to create space and get out there. But unless you're starting to catch consistent balls from your QB1, that means you're going to stay at 5 and not 3. And that 3 is the consistent 3 wide receiver set that you need to be to make a true impact. Additionally, that's 5 wide receivers, and we haven't even gotten to Jalen Polk, who is injured and out. The second-round pick from last year is not looking good, and don't be surprised if he ends up on the injured reserve. Kendrick Bourne, who is the consummate teammate, has made great strides to get back from his injury 2 years ago, even being able to be out on the field last year. He is unfortunately injured again and not out there. His chances of making this team are very difficult. Javon Baker, who continues to actually make strides, caught a touchdown pass with the twos in practice on Wednesday, and then was immediately pushed up to the ones. So again, a guy who is making the most of Paul Bourne's injuries maybe could find a way, especially now competing and contributing on special teams here, makes his chance of making the roster even greater. The guy that everyone continues to talk about, undrafted free agent from Eastern Washington, Efton Chisholm, was pulling away from everyone in practice. He even got a flea flicker thrown to him at one point with the ones, and that's reminiscent of those Danny Amendolas, the Julian Edelmans, those plays that Josh McDaniels loves. He's already got Efton Chisholm running those. And now, yes, he didn't connect on that flea flicker, full disclosure, but the fact that they're even trying it with him shows that Josh McDaniels is planning for this guy, and he is very likely to make this roster. And then if Javon Baker can actually be a contributor at special teams, as long as there's not somewhere else on this roster you say we have to have it, do not be surprised if the Patriots actually do carry 7 wide receivers on this roster. A long ways to go with 2 more preseason games to happen. But again, that is the way it's trending right now. Finally, the question is fair to ask, is Drake May worried about the guys up front? He was last year, whether he would admit it or not, as the consummate teammate. He never did and was always very, complimentary of the linemen up front. But we saw, the proof was in the pudding, is that they did not hack it. And that's why you spent your number 4 overall pick, your third round pick, a 7th round pick, more guys up front. And if that 7th round pick in Marcus Bryant, the rookie out of Missouri, actually does end up at right tackle, and Morgan Moses was actually out there today, on Wednesday in those joint practices against the Vikings at right tackle. But if he needs some time and continues to go on his way, the Patriots are now looking at potentially 3 rookies starting on that offensive line, because we already know that Will Campbell and Jared Wilson are starting at left tackle and left guard respectively. So that is, again, a ton of youth up front. But Drake May, for his credit, continues to not be worried at all. He is very excited to see Will Campbell out there and actually complimented him to the utmost, saying that he is quote unquote a beast up front. He said that Campbell, you see a different energy when he's out there. We're just challenging him to bring it every day. You play a good game, you got to come back and do it again. You don't want to get, if you don't, you get a chance to answer it the next week. And again, that is what rookies, anybody on the field, has to do, and it's being level-headed, right? Being able to own your mistakes, learn from them, and change from it, and being able to execute at that high level. And that can go for anybody, right? In our day-to-day jobs, your bosses don't want to see you make mistakes, but if you do, learn from it, don't make a mistake, and actually get better from it, they'll move on and roll with the punches, as long as you're not making the same mistake again and again. If you make it, learn from it, and go ahead, that's exactly what Will Campbell is doing. Now, again, what might he struggle against the premier defensive ends in the league? Of course, everybody will. But if he can learn a little bit on how to grow his game, then it will help Drake May. It will help the offense overall. And it will help a very young offensive line continue to get better week to week, which is why this team can potentially get to that 9-8 mark, 10-7, and have a conversation about the playoffs, because again, their schedule is one of the easiest right now in the NFL. Things can change, but right now, I truly think this Patriots squad will be in contention for a playoff spot when all is said and done. That'll do it for us here on this episode of Pat's Latest. We'll continue to have everything ramping up for you into week 2 of the preseason against the Minnesota Vikings. Make sure you go down, again, subscribe for the channel, get in the comments, let us know what you think about what's going on in joint practices for your New England Patriots. We'll continue to have everything for you right here, so give us that like, go back and check out all the old episodes so you know what's going on with your Pats, and fight on, Foxborough.